Now we have completed the build, we've introduced water, and we've let the tank sit for a couple days. This is a tiny little filter, but I'm actually pretty impressed how this little tiny substrate was able to pull out the water. Now what you see is the water is just still a bit cloudy. That's not from the gravel. A lot of times when you build a tank, you'll get what's called a little bacteria belt. It's harmless to the fish and to you, and it'll eventually filter out. But you get a short bacteria bloom, nothing to worry about, and it clears itself up, takes about 2 more days. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the fish, and I selected some pretty neat fish from our warehouse. All these you can find in the pet store with the exception of this guy. I'm gonna float him for about 20 minutes, and then I'm gonna introduce a little of this water into his bag and let it float for another 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna release him. It just gives him a little more acclimation time. For some of these rarer wild-caught fish, it's safer, and all cories, it's safer to do that with them rather than just float the bag for 30 minutes and release them. The rest of these are like bulletproof fish that I selected in shrimp and snails. So we'll be able to just cut the bags or in this case, just pour the water right into the tank. All the water here is the same temperature as the tank. So let's just sit here for 20 minutes.
20 minutes later.
Let's do a little slice in the bag. I use razors. It's just what we do in wholesale, but use something safer. So I've cut the bag. I put some water, I'll put a little more water in for this little critter, and we're gonna let it sit for just 10 more minutes.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Okay, 10 minutes. Thank you for waiting. Let's go ahead and release him. Assistridium dichromum, or the green whiptail, gets no longer than 3 inches. He has a long, thin, whip-looking tail, and he's green. It has a very narrow profile, pretty cool fish. Once in a blue moon, you'll find it in a pet store. Most of the time you see something like this, you Google it, you want it, the pet store doesn't have it, ask them for it, and they'll contact wholesalers like me, and we can get it out there to them. Okay, so now let's add the rest of the neighbors to our little Assistridium dichromum. These are nerite snails, and I'm putting in a really neat one. This is the thorny nerite. They get little spikes, about 1/4 of an inch when they're full grown, coming off of their shell. As a little protective measure. They're tiny right now. And if they grow and look like they're kind of upsetting the balance of the look or feel nature of the tank, just physically remove them. They won't breed in your tank. I'm going to add cherry shrimp. As I have a dark base here, I want something that'll pop. So I just selected these instead of jade shrimp or blue or black shrimp. So they should do nicely in there. These are an unusual fish because I'm trying to load up the zones, the low zone, medium zone, and high zone of the aquarium because it's such a tall profile. I don't want everything just sitting on the bottom of the tank. So these are top dwellers. These are called platinum half-beaks. They get just slightly bigger than this. They won't harm the shrimp, and they're actually live breeders like guppies and platies. So adds a little action to the aquarium. This is probably the most popular nano fish. It's called the Celestial Danio or Celestial Rasbora, Galaxy Rasbora, Galaxy Danio, all the same fish. Very, very small right now. They'll get a full inch when they're to size. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you add fish to the tank. Remember, from the pet store, they're usually juveniles, so they will grow. So you want to accommodate a tank size that fits the adult size of the fish you're putting together. So if it looks a little sparse, it's going to fill up as you feed them. Last but not least, well, at least because they're the cheapest, but very pretty, are endlers. Endlers are in the guppy family, but they're smaller than guppies, only half the size. And these are called sky blue endlers. So I put a little pack of 4 of them. They usually school together, though they're not traditionally schooling fish. And just to add a little action to the aquarium, I'm adding 1 poor female endler. There she goes. So now we have a full aquarium, and I wouldn't add anything more to this tank. because what's going to happen over time is all these fish are going to grow, even the shrimp, and you're going to have a nice packed aquarium, and so that's your first. Well, actually, my first nano tank wasn't too hard. Oh, one thing I want to mention though, I had to weight down this driftwood with these lead weights. I'm still learning. I'm not the greatest landscaper. I'm an aquarium fish guy. So if anyone has some good ideas on how to hide lead weights, that would be terrific. And this will be quite easy to maintain because I was very surprised how easy this was to just pull out, rinse, and it didn't quite polish the tank yet, but we've only had it here working for 2 days. And the temperature is preset at 75 degrees. You don't have to worry about that. That's enough lighting. It's a tank light. Everything's great. So all I have to do is a weekly water change. Again, if you want tank maintenance in more detail, just go back to one of our previous episodes, which is aquarium maintenance, aptly named, and it'll give you many more details about how to maintain your tank. One thing you don't have to do though that episode addressed was because we went with activated substrate, you don't have to do the cleaning of the gravel. Otherwise, it'll be a great episode for you to watch. So please subscribe, please watch all the episodes. And if you don't have a fish tank, most of all, get a fish tank. Oh wait, we had one response. We had from Matt, the fish guy. Matt keeps fish. Matt keeps fish on why are mystery snails called mystery snails? And then one of my breeders also had a answer. So Matt's answer was as good as any of the others I'd heard. He believes one of the reasons is because they tend to burrow, and if they're in soft sand, you'll see them once and then they'll disappear and then reappear sometime later. So I like that. The other from one of our breeders said that one reason they call them mystery snails in Florida is because where we import them from is because they put these big egg sacs here with a couple hundred eggs, but you don't know what colors they're going to be coming out of. So they like to call them mystery snails for that reason. But he wasn't sure if that's really the reason they're called mystery snails. But let's conclude that. Let's just say, because Matt subscribes, let's go with his idea, and they burrow under the sand and then pop up later. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you in the near future.